there are issues that we need to always discuss in a democratic fashion to come up with the best solution. Compromises are needed. But if we look at Islam, it says that religion should never be used as a tool, a government tool, to control the people. Okay? That the freedom of the practice of religion by all religions is guaranteed by the scripture itself, by the Quran. That God says, those who want to believe, let them believe. Those who don't want to believe, if somebody says there is no God, you can't force anyone to believe. What's your idea of God and your definition of God or gods is up to you. God will judge that business later, but it is not allowed for any human government to, by the Islamic idea, to control or to use religion for its own purposes. Now, we see that throughout many of the so-called Muslim countries or Muslim majority countries that governments have been toppled and changed, and there are revolutions throughout North Africa and the Middle East, and that's a natural outcome from religion, meaning people here in the media were, the pundits were saying, you know, what does this mean? You know, if those regimes go, these secular regimes, we will have theocracies like Iran. And I would say it's the opposite, that the people are not interested in any kind of dictatorship, be it a religious dictatorship or a secular dictatorship, like we had in Libya and Egypt and Syria and Iraq. And we don't want any kind of dictatorships. We want true democracy where the people have a voice and have control over their lives. And that is guaranteed in Islam. So we found in Egypt, for example, in Libya, Tunisia, that the so-called Islamists were in the front rows of the revolution because they want to ensure that people have those rights. And those fears that people have from the European experience with the church are not the same when it comes to the Islamic experience with government, because for over 1400 years there were successive governments and there were check on power, and religion was not controlling the lives of the people, but it is a personal choice. So for someone who is sick, I think I spoke more than my share, and we'll throw it back to Brian or to you for questions.
I specifically had a question regarding your theory on how you feel that Islam should, or I'm sorry, not Islam, Afghanistan should be electing or bringing democracy in. You said that it should look more like Congress electing or bringing somebody in to run the country. But who's going to put that Congress in place? Who's going to elect the representatives who would speak for each of the different tribes or the different people's interests to bring that leader in there? I think it's a great idea, but I was curious if you would be willing to elaborate a little bit more and go a little more in depth on how that might look from the perspective that you have, knowing what democracy can be and what it needs to be for that country.
Well, the problem with Afghanistan is that vast swaths of the country is not under the control of the government, and there are no roads, no means of communication. So the fallacy that there was an election, people elected President Karzai, it's not true. Maybe the city of, you know, I forgot the name of their capital. So the idea there is there are representatives that have been elected from different tribes. That process is much easier. There are hundreds of them. And like many countries where the prime minister is chosen by the parliament, okay, and works with that majority in the parliament to advance their laws and their agenda, would work better for Afghanistan than our model, where You have a parliament, but yet the president has been elected by the people, which is not true, and then he overrides the parliament all the time. And he can guarantee he will be re-elected again and again and again forever because he's a very rich man. So there are other models for democracy in the world where parliaments are elected and they choose their leader or the leader of the country, the effective leader, the prime minister or the president.
So what you think? It's about what you think?
Well, yeah, actually it is. They're trying to, actually, I'm sure it's made it out of the House already, but they're trying to get the stamp on it since like 1983. There's many different compartments to the bill,
Okay.
but one of the ones that a lot of religious people are worried about is if like ministers are saying, you know, they got crazy ministers out there saying like God hate gays and they, you know, need to burn. So like people out of their congregations go commit a hate crime, like and go kill a gay or something like that, then they're saying they can charge the minister with inciting that, you know, hate or whatever. So it's the thoughts crime bill that's basically getting ready to pass if it hasn't already. And I was wondering, what is the religious community feeling about that? Because a lot of people feel that from a minister standpoint, that that's gonna be a big conflict with religion in America and freedom of speech and whatnot.
Imam, are you familiar with that one?
I'm not familiar with it, with the law or the legislation you're discussing, but we do believe in individual responsibility. The Islamic law focuses a lot on personal responsibility for what you say and what you do, and you should bear the consequences of those choices. So if I'm an imam and I incite violence, even if I don't commit it myself, I'm guilty, and I should do time for it, or I should be in some shape or form, be punished for what I have caused. Because a faith leader like me has influence on the minds of people. And probably the majority have their own independent minds and they will critique what they hear from me. But there's at least one out there who will just completely buy everything I say and go out and shoot someone and think that he is doing it in the name of God and the name of Islam. And we have seen many examples of this in the last 10 years. So those people, those religious leaders, in the case of Islam and speaking, that incite such violence, they should be held responsible too. They should not be exempt because they didn't pull the trigger. Okay. I don't believe it's freedom of speech conflict here. You can speak about whatever you want, but if you are instructing, using the power of religion and the power of speaking on behalf of God to a vulnerable mind and instructing them to go out and hurt other people, that's no longer, just like shouting fire in a crowded theater. It's not your freedom of speech anymore. You gave up that freedom. You're now causing death and destruction.